Welcome into the first episode of College Crossfire for the semester. I'm your host, Jaxie Pidgeon, and I'm really excited for tonight's show. And here are tonight's panelists, too. Everyone can introduce themselves.
All right. Hi, I'm Matt. Fifth semester on the show. Ready to come back, get another dub.
Awesome. Robert, how are you?
Yeah, I get to be like the middle square. I thought that was real cool. I open up into you guys, but I'm the returning champion, sitting in the middle at Rob Trev 22. Here we go. This is very exciting. We have the boys in here tonight. One of us is going to come out on top. It's not going to be easy. Iron sharpens iron. Whoever wins this is really going to play the good game today.
Awesome. And John, how are you?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to battling out with Matt and Robert, and it's my second year at TSUV. Made it to the finals of the Tournament of Champions last fall. I'm looking to begin my campaign to the finals again this semester.
Love to hear it. How are online classes going for everyone?
Well, what you're seeing here is basically what everything I don't look like on my Zoom calls. So I'm coming in on my Zoom calls with some poor lighting. Typically, not raise the laptop, but overall online classes, we're getting through them. Everybody, has got to adjust, and I think we're all doing as well as we can.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely do not look like this for my online classes. What about everyone else?
They're going good. My 8 a.m. class attendance rate has gone through the roof since changing to online classes. Turns out not having to get out of bed, it's a great incentive for me to go to class.
It's true. I know. It's so you don't even have to wake up anymore. And all my classes are online so far. I have one that's supposed to be hybrid, but still hoping for that one to stay on.
Yeah, I think they're going pretty good. Still takes a little getting used to. It's kind of just like you're not really learning as much. It's kind of just assignments being due, but like we'll get through it.
Yeah, assignments being due and a lot of teaching yourself. It's what I've found on some things, but we'll all make it through. It'll happen. Also, a quick note, how about the Dallas Stars? Anyone?
Yeah.
Bravo to the Stars.
I'm pumped. That was huge. Especially,
Really...
I needed some good news. It needed to happen.
It's so nice because, I mean, they were so bad before, but now they're actually, no one would have thought that, the Dallas Stars were going to the Stanley Cup Finals, but here we are, 2020. It's crazy stuff.
Like I said, some good news in 2020 is what we always need.
I think the Dallas Stars are about as good right now as I think John's headset. His audio is crystal clear. I will not be able to compete with him in that regard tonight. So if it comes down to audio quality, I think John takes this one easily.
Yeah, I agree. He's got it all going on there. Also, though, I have to award 2 points to the panelists with the best background. And that's also going to go to John because it just looks very organized. I like the confetti shooters coming out. Just really slaying, John. You're killing it.
John, what country is that? I'm not.
It's Croatia.
Croatia. Oh, I should have guessed.
Yeah, his favorite team's Croatia.
Let's go.
We're doing terrible in the Nations League right now, but that's okay. We were runners-up in the World Cup 2 years ago, and we will live that down probably for the next 2 years until the next World Cup. Even though we're bad now. They're bad now, but...
Yeah, you can't win them all.
And we got the Lamar Jackson jersey, because we got to rep the Baltimore Ravens.
Robert, where are your jerseys?
My jerseys are not here. They're in my closet. I should get them out. I figured the Rocky poster would suffice enough as far as a little bit of sports. But you're right. I need the jerseys out there.
All right, guys. Well, we'll be back in just a minute. Texas football gets off to a hot start in their home opener. The Celtics Heat rivalry is back, and the U.S. Open Championship begins tomorrow at Winged Foot. All of this and more coming up on College Crossfire.
Let's do this.
And their men's basketball team needs to stop social distancing themselves from fans.
But now it has been overdone to death. Playing, don't stop believing.
Bye-bye, Bucks. Bye-bye, Raptors.
All right, let's get to it. Welcome into College Crossfire. I'm your host, Jaxie Pidgeon, and it looks like tonight's show is going to be a good one. Let's start out by introducing tonight's panel. On first base, we have Matt Marinchak. How are you, Matt?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Robert, on second base, returning champion from our mock show last week. How are you?
Well, to quote Patrick Swayze, ditto.
All right. And John, on third base, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be talking sports, especially in this age of Corona.
Love to hear it. You know, some good news is always good news, and sports is a fan of all of ours. All right, let's get to it. This past Saturday, Texas football kicked off their 10-game season in style with a 59-3 victory over the University of Texas at El Paso. On their home stomping grounds, the Longhorns got off to a hot start, with Ellinger launching a 78-yard touchdown pass to Joshua Moore on the opening play of the game. The Longhorns offense came ready to play and even set program records in this game, with Ellinger posting 429 passing yards and 5 touchdown passes in the first half. On the defensive side, the Longhorns only gave up 3 points to the Miners. Although Texas was a heavy favorite in the game from the get-go, what would you say was the Longhorns' biggest takeaway from this game? Matt?
Well, I gotta say the biggest takeaway from the UTEP game is the new coordinators that Texas hired off in the offseason made a huge difference. Looking at last year, the offense it was very predictable. It was run, bubble screen to Duvernay, slant, repeat. But this year, it was a completely different offense. It was just a monster. There was not one guy on the team. It was a more creative team, more creative offense, less predictable plays. And if you look at the run game, they had 9 different players to record at least 1 rush attempt, 10 different guys catch a pass, and 7 different guys catch a touchdown. That's not something we would have seen in the past few years. Last year, we had Colin Johnson and Devin Duvernay. The year before, they had Lil Jordan Humphrey. Like, having that committee running backs and wide receivers really helps give this offense more of an edge. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, changing from a 3-4 to a 4-3. The pass rush is more prevalent than it was last year. They get to the quarterback a lot quicker, create a lot more pressure to stop the run and to cause incompletions.
Yeah, those are all fair points. And I especially agree with you on that offensive side. It's a lot more hands that are touching the ball this year. Like you were saying, it's not just the same few players that are getting it. And I'm glad that they had that opportunity playing against UTEP to test that out. Robert, what do you think?
Well, I think what we learned from this UTEP game is really just how high the ceiling is for UT this year. And I Sam Ellinger was going to bring it offensively, and he did, TD on the first play of the game to Joshua Moore, and they score, I think, a touchdown on 5 of their first 6 possessions. You knew Ellinger was going to bring it, especially in his senior season. But the defense for me looked very, very good. To allow only 3 points to a team that was coming in on the hunt for Texas, legitimately, some people were saying, the fact that they were down 34 points with the point spread, Texas, was privy to playing close games. They did not do that. It looked as though they were inspired to silence all of those doubters and the naysayers, including me sometimes. But Ellinger looked fantastic, and I just think the offense looked so good. You just say the sky's the limit for the Longhorns this year.
All around, it was a great performance on both sides, like you said. But it is important to note that defensive side, too, because that's where sometimes the Longhorns struggle, but it's good to see them starting off on a high note. John, what do you think?
I think the biggest takeaway from this game is the overall feeling of how good this Texas team is. A 59-3 win and a score is exactly what I want to see. That's what the Associated Press want to see when trying to determine where in the top 25 this Texas team places. In the past, Texas have managed to dig themselves into a hole at the beginning of the season, only to try and climb their way out, mostly unsuccessfully, towards the end of the season. We had the loss to Maryland in 2018, the 2 scores against Louisiana Tech last year that weren't great, and that close game against Tulsa also in 2018. So the fact that Texas was so explosive to get this blowout win, it shows that Texas ain't messing around and can manage to win the games that it's supposed to win.
Yeah, just it allowed for people to see them on the stage, showing what they have worked for and what they have to offer this season. So all of y'all made great points. You're all going to start out with 2 points in this first question. So going to the second question, in Saturday's matchup against the UTEP Miners, 6 Longhorns made their first career start under the bright lights at DKR. 5 of those were offensive players. On the offensive side of the ball, Ellinger dominated the first half, allowing for some backup players to make their debuts. Backup quarterbacks Casey Thompson, who is a redshirt sophomore, and Hudson Card, a freshman from Austin, were able to finish out the rest of the game. The lack of competition also allowed for other backups and walk-ons to play, and even score a touchdown in Kai Money's case. So which Texas backup stood out the most to you from this game? Robert?
Well, I'm not so much looking at a necessarily backup, but I am looking at somebody who people didn't have a lot of their eyes on before this game, and that's Tariq Black. We saw him have 5 receptions for 80 yards, including one 31-yard reception. I think that this goes to prove that Texas is very, very deep in terms of wide receiving. Its wide receiving core has bounced back from the losses of Colin Johnson and Devin Duvernay, and I think that especially this year, if you look at the Longhorns, if they're going to make the college football playoff run, you ask, what is their glaring weakness? Clemson's last year was a little bit of its offensive line. Texas this year, you could say wide receiver, but I think this was a great sign that Texas might be able to shore that up enough that if they go late into January or whenever we're going to have this playoff, they can basically shore up that ultimate weakness that is going to be exposed.
Sure. And like you said, not a backup, but Tariq Black was definitely a great addition to this team out of Michigan. But yeah, some good potential. John?
I think the player that stood out to me the most was Casey Thompson. He scored 2 touchdowns in the second half, and while he didn't get too many yards, I think those touchdowns and performance show that Texas has a future quarterback. Past decade, Texas has notoriously been very bad with quarterbacks until Ellinger arrived, and I think his performance in the game on Saturday showed that Texas has a bright future in Casey Thompson.
Yeah, it's also an important note because, like you said, everyone's so focused on Ellinger, but now they have that option that we've seen it up front and personal. Here it is, that there's a backup. Matt?
I gotta say, Brendan Schooler, the grad transfer from Oregon, he originally was supposed to transfer to Arizona, but the Pac-12 postponing their season. He came to Texas, which was a great addition to Texas. He came in, had 2 big catches, had a long touchdown run. He's a guy that you really didn't expect to come out there and really perform his first game. I was really impressed when I saw him play. When I first saw him catch that touchdown, I was like, who is this dude? Like, I've never seen this guy on the team, but I mean, Texas is glad to have him on the team, and he's really impressed everybody in his first game.
Yeah, to have a first touchdown in your first game with the school, that's a pretty impressive accomplishment. But I'm going to go with John on this one. John, you'll get 2, Robert 1, Matt 1. Going into the final football question for the night, although their dominant 59-3 victory appeared to be flawless, there's always room for improvement. Head coach Tom Herman hired 2 new coordinators, offensive coordinator Mike Yursich and defensive coordinator Chris Ash, as well as 5 assistant coaches who all came into the season without a spring practice due to the coronavirus. The Longhorns have a bye week this week and will take on the Texas Tech Red Raiders in Lubbock the following week for the Big 12 opener. Will the Longhorns be able to play at the same level and with the same mentality that they did against UTEP? What does Texas need to adjust during this bye week to ensure success? John?
Texas needs to work on its communication. There were a couple times during the first half when there were miscues between Ellinger and the receivers, and there were a couple balls that went nowhere. And against an inferior team like UTEP, that wasn't really a problem. When we get into the games like Oklahoma State, where the pressure's high, the stress level's high, those miscommunications, if they're still around, are going to prove deadly for this Texas team. So we got 2 weeks, and we got an easy game against Texas Tech in 2 weeks. They got an easy game against Texas Tech in 2 weeks. If they get those issues solved, it'll be easy riding.
Yeah, communication is definitely key to success, especially in this case where, I mean, we see them playing a team that, of course, wasn't up to their competition, but it is important to make sure that they know what they're doing heading into more competitive games. Matt?
Texas just needs to keep going with the full head of steam because in previous years, they tend to play down to the competition. We saw it last year against TCU and Iowa State, the previous year against Tulsa and Maryland. They get so confident after beating a team bad or beating a ranked team. They don't keep that confidence. They start playing down to their opponent. They can't do that. They just need to keep playing with the same mentality they had last week so they could try the best to cruise through the Big 12. Also, they need to be more disruptive on the defensive line. I mentioned earlier that they had great pressure, but all that great pressure only got them one sack, especially against an O-line as inferior as UTEP. You need to have more than one sack. So they need to work on getting to the quarterback more and playing with that confidence.
Sure. Very important cases there too. Robert?
Well, as far as what they showed us against UTEP, they played basically flawless. You cannot ask a football team to play better than they did. The only thing that's going to change, obviously, is that even though you get a weaker opponent in the Big 12 in Texas Tech in a couple weeks, they are still going to be bringing the offensive firepower that they've been known for since the Leach days. And the one thing that worries me and troubles me just a little bit is the fact that UTEP was able to get 190 passing yards on this secondary, especially when you look at BJ Foster leaving and now returning to the team. I don't want to throw out that there might be turmoil in there, but it's just not necessarily the best look when you're winning games 59-3 over UTEP to have a guy just completely leave the team. So I think that on the defensive end, especially with Chris Ash and his reputation at the University of Texas, great opening game, but against UTEP, that's pretty much the bare minimum standard at the University of Texas.
Yeah, Robert, you're going to get the points on this one because it is, when you are up by that much, it is just hard to see what to exactly focus on. But when you're up by that much and you still have people making questionable decisions, then that's when it becomes complicated. So Robert 2, Matt 1, John 1. And the Big 12 has a wide variety of teams in its conference. In fact, the conference has been around for almost 30 years and it has been 15 years since a Big 12 team has won the national title, which was the University of Texas back in 2005. This past weekend, Texas, West Virginia, and Oklahoma took care of business on the field, while others, not so much. Iowa State took the L against Louisiana at home in Ames, 31-14. Kansas State was upset by Arkansas State, 35-31, and Coastal Carolina took down Kansas, 38-23. Lastly, in a game that went until the bitter end, Texas Tech squeaked out a last-minute victory, only beating Houston Baptist by 2 points. With all of that being said, what was the most embarrassing Big 12 game from the weekend? Matt?
I'm gonna have to say Texas Tech because when you're playing an FCS team, a team in a completely different division of football as you, you're expected to beat them by 20-plus points, especially with that air raid offense that you have at Texas Tech. They should be slinging the ball down the field with literally no opposition like Texas did against UTEP. Clearly that wasn't the case, and it was a lot closer, and HBU almost won a game that they had no business being in.
Yeah, sorry, Robert, about Lubbock there, but that was pretty embarrassing. And like you said, Matt, from the last question, it's just like playing down to their competition. They had no business being that close. Robert?
Well, I think Lubbock's doing all right, but I think it's definitely got to be Iowa State's loss. I mean, people coming in saying that Iowa State might be able to actually take on Texas for the Big 12 title. And then you lose 17 at home to a team from the Sun Belt. Nobody's expecting anything out of Texas Tech this year. Iowa State, some people still believed. I don't think those people believe or should believe any longer.
Yeah, 31-14 is not a good look, especially when you're planned to be up further. John?
I'm agree with Matt here. The close victory by Texas Tech shouldn't have been that close. In my mind, if Houston Baptist didn't get that or had gotten that 2-point conversion, they could have easily won that game in overtime. I think it's more embarrassing over the other games just because I expect that of the other teams. Iowa State may have been ranked. I didn't expect them to do any better than they did. I think the Texas Tech game was the most embarrassing of the weekend.
Yeah, Texas Tech game, definitely not ideal, but I'm going to go with Robert on this one just because they were expected to be so good and then took a big L this weekend. So, Robert, you're going to get 2, Matt 1, John 1. When we come back, the panel discusses the NBA playoffs and the U.S. Open Championship. You won't want to miss it.
You look like a flower, so sweet today. You look like a flower, each and every way. You look like a flower that blooms in May. You really look okay. And when I hold your hand each and every night, you make me think the things you say is so really right. And when I see you when you smile, you make the day so bright.
Welcome in to the 1-0 Sports Show.
The premier sports talk show on the 40 acres.
We're back.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. On first base, we have Matt with 4 points. Second base, Robert with 5 points. And on third base, John is in the lead with 7 points. Let's get right back in. This past Friday, Texas soccer returned to action after 6 months in their home opener against the Kansas Jayhawks. For their final season, fall season, all Big 12 teams are playing a conference-only schedule of 9 total matches. The Jayhawks are a solid match for the Longhorns and have been for a good amount of time. In fact, 19 of the last 20 contests between the two teams have either been settled by 1 goal or gone into overtime and penalty kicks. Friday's game proved that to be true, being a scoreless 0-0 until the 80-minute mark when Kansas senior Kerry Holland put the Jayhawks on the board. So, is this loss against Kansas a sign of things to come for the Longhorns? Robert.
No way. This is way too early to count out a team like Texas soccer. You look at the stats. Let's go to the stats right here. 7 shots on goal from the Longhorns. That's over Kansas's 4. So I don't think that there's anything to worry about. And if we look at Texas soccer's upcoming schedule, you go at TCU, but you come home and you get to play Kansas State and Oklahoma. 2 of those matchups, I believe Texas should be favorited. I think that there's just too much soccer left to play after one game. And Kansas is no slouch. They come in and beat you 1-0 despite only having 4 shots on goal. I think you just chalk that one up to, oh, well, we'll get them next time. Sometimes you just can't control every single thing that happens out there. Look at the statistics, and they should be scoring and coming back from this one.
Yeah, it's also just been a long time since competition. So coming back and losing 1-0 isn't the worst thing. John?
I agree with Robert. It's so early in the season. You know, it's hard to tell what's going to happen later on. But a 1-0 loss isn't that much. And the fact that the goal was so late in the game, you know, if could have been just a little bit of fatigue as the first game. So a little bit of work, rebounding, the emotional feelings coming off the loss, pushing them to get wins further on. I think they'll be able to rebound.
Right. That first goal came on the 80-minute mark. It's a little late in the game, but yeah, too early to kind of decide where this team is going to stand. Matt, what do you think?
I'm going to have to disagree with Robert and John. I think this is a sign of things to come because obviously with COVID, it's a shorter season. They only have 9 games instead of their usual 20, so every game matters more if you want to make the playoffs. And last year, they only finished at 11-8-1, losing the first round to Texas A&M. Coach Kelly was kind of on the hot seat last year, and judging by how the Kansas game went, she might still be on the hot seat. Texas obviously need to play a lot better for Coach Kelly to get off the hot seat. And the offense looked stagnant. The defense was good until the 80th minute when they gave up that goal. I understand with COVID, you lost a lot of the off-season practices, but if Texas doesn't wake up on offense and start scoring, Coach Kelly's going to stay on the hot seat, and Texas isn't going to have a very good year.
I feel like those are good points too, but it is that first game, still knocking off rust. So, Robert, you're going to get the points on this one, and we're heading straight into the NBA. So, this past Sunday, the Houston Rockets head coach Mike D'Antoni informed his team that he is becoming a free agent and will not be returning to the Rockets next season. This all happened right after a 5-game loss to the Los Angeles Lakers in the second round of the postseason. After 4 seasons with the team, his journey will be continued elsewhere. As for the Rockets, well, they will need to find a replacement. They will need to find a new head coach that will take advantage of the talent that this Houston roster has, and especially use the Harden-Westbrook duo to their benefit. There are several names that have been circling around of coaches who will take over D'Antoni's position. Who do you think the Rockets are going to hire? John?
I think a great choice for this Rockets team would be Jeff Van Gundy, former Houston Rockets coach and current presenter for ESPN. Well, his time at Houston was so long ago and didn't really produce much results. He lives in Houston already. He has experience with the team, although long ago. And he had some stints as a coach for Team USA. And I think that really helped mature his coaching career. And I think the fact that he's already in Houston, he has experience with the team, I think he'd be a great fit.
Yeah, that's a great option as well, for sure. It's just a matter if he wants to give up his role as a commentator right now, but definitely experience with the team and would fit into Houston. Matt?
I think they're going to have to hire Tyronn Lue. He had a great stint with Cleveland, winning that championship with LeBron. But obviously, that was LeBron's team. LeBron had a lot of say in the front office. So when they started losing, not doing too well after losing to the Warriors, he kind of got pushed out of the team and is now assistant coach of the Clippers. But Lue knew how to build a team. He had all the pieces when he was in Cleveland, and he has great pieces with Westbrook, Harden, PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon. If you have a guy like Tyronn Lue coming into Houston, he could do something special with that team.
Yeah, and he also did play for the Rockets, so he's definitely a good option as well. Robert?
So let me tell you who I think the Rockets should hire. And that's what my compatriot John below said. That is who he said. He said it was Jeff Van Gundy. And let me tell you why. Van Gundy, if you listen to him on ESPN, he sounds like he wants to be coaching out there right then. I've never seen a commentator give the refs more of kind of his opinion than Jeff Van Gundy. I think he belongs in Houston. I think he very much would give up his commentator spot for that. And I know that Daryl Morey, who wanted to originally hire Van Gundy when the position was open in 2016, wants him signed. But I think that ownership is going to go with Sam Cassell. Of course, the fan favorite was a Rockets champion when he played for them. I think it's the obvious answer, but I do think that general manager Daryl Morey is going to kind of be very frustrated with ownership's decision to go with Sam Cassell. I think we could see kind of a Morey split, which I think would be very interesting in terms of where does he go as a general manager.
Yeah, that's also Van Gundy's definitely a top choice, but I'm going to go with Matt on this one with Lue. He's experienced, he's won championships, he's coached championships, and he played for the Rockets. So Matt, you're going to get the points on this one. Tomorrow begins the U.S. Open Championship at Winged Foot Golf Club in Marinchak, New York. This will be the second major championship since the PGA returned to play in June. This year's field is made up of 6 past U.S. Open champions, which are Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth, Justin Rose, Webb Simpson, Rory McIlroy, and Tiger Woods. From the end of June to the beginning of September, Dustin Johnson has had 3 first-place finishes at the Travelers Championship, the Northern Trust, and the Tour Championship. Johnson is a crowd favorite coming off of the recent victories. However, he will be met by plenty of competition at the top of the leaderboard. That being said, who is your favorite to win the U.S. Open? Matt?
I'm going to have to say Dustin Johnson. As you mentioned, he has been on a hot streak, winning 3 Opens recently. And he's also the fan favorite to win, and I think he's going to use the momentum he has from the past few tournaments to carry him in the victory.
Yeah, DJ's been pretty hot the last couple of weeks. I would not be surprised if he made another great debut this week. Robert?
You would be right to say that Dustin Johnson is probably most likely to win. He's favored actually most highly in the odds right now via William Hill at 17-2. What I will say, though, is that he is not the fan favorite at all. The fan favorite at every major golf tournament, if he's playing, is Eldrick Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods is my favorite this week. And when you're picking Tiger, you kind of have to accept that your really only belief is that this is somehow just his week. And that's really the only answer I can offer you. But I think that Tiger, there's just something brewing right there. I think it's his time, and I think he's going to do a repeat of what he did at last year's Masters.
Yeah, he's going to have comeback season, but this time at the U.S. Open. John, what do you think?
I'm going to differ a bit. I'm going to place my bet on Colin Morikawa. He's the 5th-ranked player in the world, and he already has 3 victories on the PGA Tour. He's young, he's capable, and I think this is his time to shine in the U.S. Open.
Yeah, Morikawa's had a great season as well, but I'm going to give Robert the points on this one with Tiger. He is due for a good time at the U.S. Open. Coming up next on College Crossfire, it's Rapid Fire. You won't want to miss it.
Men's basketball looks for a key win against Iowa State. Women's basketball is tested against the number 2 team in the nation.
The Longhorns had a dominant pitching performance in the latter half of the game, led by Pete Hansen.
I get to say some of the most exciting words in football. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. And picking for
Texas started the third with the lead and continued to gain momentum on defense.
Hello and welcome into the first social distancing college press box ever.
You're watching a live sports presentation of Texas Student Television.
It's a lovely evening in Austin. Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies.
This is a rivalry game, high intensity, high scoring.
Puck drop, we're off.
Both of these teams are very fast.
Big collision on the wall there. Now a little advantage for Texas. Shot in the middle.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. It's time for Rapid Fire. In this round, points are worth double, and that means it's anybody's game. Before we jump back in, let's take another look at the scoreboard. On first base, we have Matt with 5 points. Second base, Robert with 7 points, tied with John on third base for 7 points. First question on Rapid Fire. There's nothing quite like sports that is capable of bringing people together from all different backgrounds. I personally have been incredibly pleased with the number of athletes using their platform to create positive change in our world. A fight for equality has been the main topic of conversation among many athletes. As a woman working my way up in the sports industry, I am inspired by other female athletes, journalists, and changemakers who use their voice and platform to make a difference and to try to make it clear that females are equals in the sports industry. Who is a woman working in sports that you consider a role model? Anyone can jump in.
I guess I'll start us off. What are we considering working? Are you considering like on camera, behind scenes, or like athletes as well?
Any women in sports?
I'm going to have to say Maya Moore. Recently, she helped free a wrongly imprisoned man. I think that was a very touching story. We should all strive to help people, and like she did a really humble thing by taking a break from the team, taking a break from her salary contract to help a man who was wrongly imprisoned get out and get his life back on track.
Love it. Anyone else?
I'd say Doris Burke for me. To me, she's really inspiring because, to be honest, she's really just in my top journalists really of all time. I think, anybody at that level is just really, really impressive to me, and all of her stuff that she does for ESPN, everything she does, especially in the NBA. She's just a really awesome journalist. She's really inspiring to me.
She's so inspiring. She is phenomenal and a killer journalist, and I also adore her. John?
I'm going to say the women of TSTV Sports, past and present. Y'all have inspired me so much. I've only been here 2 years. But y'all have taught me so much and made me a better person and a better sports journalist.
John, you are getting the points on this one, not just for me, but also we just had a lot of new members join. Half of them were girls, and I agree with you. I think we're helping change the world here. So I appreciate all of you guys. But John, you are getting the points on this one. Heading into the second rapid fire, the World Series is the professional baseball biggest stage. It prepares the winner of the American League with the winner of the National League to crown the best baseball team of the year. From its humble beginnings in 1903, a matchup between Boston and Pittsburgh brought two host locations, with those being Exposition Park in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, and Huntington Avenue baseball grounds in Boston, Massachusetts. From then to now, the World Series have been played in numerous locations across the U.S. This year, the MLB is holding the final 3 rounds of the playoffs at neutral site locations. The 2020 World Series will be played at the new Globe Life Park in Arlington. If you could pick the location, where would you host the World Series? Anyone can jump in.
I'd have to go the way of chess. I know, strange, but doing the World Series in exotic locations. We're talking Reykjavik, Iceland, Bangkok, Thailand. These guys have worked for it. Give them some fun times. Give them some exotic locations. Field of Dreams, get out of here. Give me beautiful ice caps or tropical locations.
Exotic tropical ice caps. What can go wrong?
So which one would it be? Would it be the tropical one, or would it be the ice one?
I feel like tropical would probably be
Tropical.
better for the baseball aesthetic, but ice caps would be pretty wicked.
That is true. I'd actually take the tropical. So I think they should have it out in a beach, an island. So we heard, I think somebody talked about a UFC island, and they want to do that. I think that'd be an awesome idea, but just for one game, and then make it a museum. Maybe even put it like on the coast somewhere, so that way you can have a lot of travel to it. Just make it kind of its own little pseudo Hall of Fame, which brings me back also to the Disney bubble. I want them at the end of that to preserve it, so that way I can go there one day and maybe get some shots up on the court that they're playing at right now.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So not only is it going to be used for just them right now, but it's a place for people to visit in the future. Matt?
Well, I want to keep it traditional for baseball. The Field of Dreams, the Yankees were supposed to play against somebody in that cornfield in Iowa this season. Obviously, with COVID, that didn't happen. Maybe play the playoffs there. It's from the movie. It's symbolic for the baseball world. It's just unique and fun.
Yeah, sticking to the regular baseball grounds. Matt, I like that. So you're going to get the points on this one. Heading into the final question of rapid fire. Last Saturday's Texas game against UTEP was filled with Longhorn touchdowns, courtesy of a variety of players on the Texas offense. One of the most notable touchdowns was a 6-yard pass from quarterback Sam Ehlinger to walk-on Kai Money. The touchdown took Twitter by storm, as many made note of the unforgettable last name of the sophomore wide receiver. Kai joins a list of athletes with memorable and unique names, from the likes of former Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Chad Ochocinco to former NBA All-Star World B. Free. So in your eyes, who has the best name in all of sports?
I think for me, it would be Giannis Antetokounmpo, because not only is it a very long name and some people have trouble pronouncing it, but the reward for learning how to pronounce it properly is that you can say it very, very smoothly. It's a very smooth name, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I think that, that makes it probably the best name in sports right now, especially because he is a top 5 player in the NBA.
Yeah, that was actually the first name that I had to say on air at TSTV was Giannis Antetokounmpo. So now I know.
I'm going to go with Elvis Andrews. It's just so fun, obviously being to have the Elvis name. Plus you have fun moments such as a couple weeks ago where, you had a guy with the last name Presley on the mound pitching against Elvis Andrews. Fun moments like that with a fun name.
Ooh, I like it. Elvis. That is a solid name. You can't go wrong. Matt?
I'm going to NBA, Meta World Peace. Just kind of a unique name.
definitely unique there. But John, you're going to get the points on this one and the win. Congratulations. That being said, it's time for FaceTime. John, take it away.
Coronavirus, go away. Thank you. That's it.
I'm right there with you, John. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight to tonight's episode of College Crossfire. Don't forget to follow us on social media at TSTV Sports on Twitter and Instagram. Lastly, be sure to wake up with the Want to Know Sports Show this Friday morning. From all the panelists in our virtual studio and our virtual Masters for Control, I'm Jaxie Pidgeon. Have a wonderful night.